Thank you very much. Thank you, Urs. Thank you for your kind introduction. I heard that the Bohemian Rhapsody is now a movie, so I'm waiting for the movie, Bohemian Rhapsody. Welcome to this graduation ceremony. Dear family, friends, alumni, I want to welcome our hosts from this beautiful Chateau Fontainebleau, staff and faculty. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the MBA graduation for the class of 2019J. Especially, I want to welcome all of you, our graduates. Today is the beginning. It is not the end of your relationship with INSEAD, because you are the INSEAD of the future. But what is INSEAD? You saw the short documentary. I want to emphasize only a very few points. INSEAD is a mission-driven school. We're independent, we're entrepreneurial, we value diversity, tolerance, and inclusion. Our founder, Georges Doriot, in 1959, wanted not only to create a business school in Europe, to bring management education to Europe, but he wanted to create a place that promotes peace and prosperity in Europe by bringing together people from all over Europe so that they can work together and build businesses together instead of fighting with each other, which, as you know, the European countries have been doing very successfully for many, many years. Our school today upholds Doriot's vision. And in the past 60 years, since 1959, as you saw, the school has achieved tremendous success. Not only that we created the first MBA in Europe, the first one-year MBA globally, the school has been innovating in executive education, creating pioneer of simulations. In 1967, INSEAD was one of the first business schools to welcome female participants in its classes. In 2000, we opened the campus in Singapore, 2007 in Abu Dhabi. This year, we'll open a facility in San Francisco. We start a huge intellectual project called the Hoffman Institute for Business and Society. There are many, many groundbreaking initiatives today. However, the speed at which we're moving is too slow. We might be one of the best business schools in the world, if not the best, but the question is, are we good enough to address the challenges that the world is facing today? And today, the world faces incredible challenges. Challenges that are related to environmental deterioration and climate change, challenges that are related to social cohesion, inequality, and populism, challenges coming from the implications of new technologies and the future of work. To really understand the roots of these challenges, we need to go back in time and understand where it's coming from. 2,000 years ago, the average person in the world did not enjoy high levels of consumption. Basic food, basic shelter, basic clothing, and not much more. For centuries, the average lifespan was between 30 and 40 years. By 1800, the average life expectancy was still 30 to 40 years. Incomes have increased over 18 centuries only by 40%. In 1800, 9 out of 10 people lived in extreme poverty. Today, 1 out of 10 people are in extreme poverty, even though the population has increased 7 times. Today, life expectancy has doubled. Incomes have increased nearly 15 times since 1820. So think about this, 18 centuries times 1.4, 2 centuries times 15. Economic growth is a new phenomenon. It's a magical transformation that has happened in the last 200 years. Nearly everything that we use today was invented in the last 200 years. Our phones, our cars, the planes, everything. We are fascinated by these technologies and by the ascent of the human race, but in this fascination, we often ignore the costs associated with the spectacular episode in the history of the world. Environmental damage is pervasive. More importantly, the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century created new conditions, new problems that none of the existing social, economic, and political systems could address. And thus, liberal democracies, communist dictatorships, fascist regimes were born. Wars, revolutions, famine, child labor. In order to get access to the natural resources that you need for industrialization, the British Army fought in 34 wars in the 19th century. In China, in South Africa, in New Zealand, all over the world. In 1848, Marx and Engels wrote the Communist Manifesto, which paved the way for oppressive regimes around the world. 20th century, 2 world wars, a Cold War. Today, we look at all this and we ask, should the industrialization be associated with so much damage and so much human cost and suffering? We look back to reinvent the world and to correct our past mistakes. But more importantly, we have to look forward and to think about the implications of the fourth industrial revolution that we experience today. The challenges posed to mankind in the 21st century by infotech, biotech, is arguably much bigger than the challenge posed by the steam engine, electricity, and railroads. We cannot afford failed models because of the power of our weapons today, because of the dangers associated with cybersecurity, as Yuval Harari writes in his recent book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. In another book, Life 3.0, Professor Max Tegmark from MIT discusses possible scenarios for the future of the world with the advancement of artificial intelligence. He concludes that the world, our life, will look like, he says, what we make it, if we are proactive. If we leave it to market forces, we might be surprised in a very unpleasant way. The future of the world depends on you and the choices that you and we make. I want to reaffirm something very important that I have talked to our students and our alumni for many years now. Business is a force for good. Business creation is the only engine of economic growth in the long run. Economic growth is the only way to eradicate poverty and increase economic welfare. If you look at China, since 1980, more than 800 million people have been lifted out of poverty. It's a miracle. Has never happened in the history of the world before. And that is because of one and only one thing, economic growth. Business is the only engine of this growth. However, despite this miracle, despite all this magical power of business, tensions between business and society are increasing. Today, trust in business is declining. 60% of the population believes that businesses, CEOs, are driven mostly by greed and not positive social change. So that has to change, because this path is not sustainable. We have to change norms. We have to change the way that we conduct business. We live in a world that we construct ourselves. There are physical laws, there are biological laws, but most of the things that matter are imagined realities that we create. Today, we have to ask, what are the norms that we need to change? That 20 years from now, the next generation will look back and say, how could they put up with this? In the same way, when we look back today, in the past, and we do not understand norms that previous generations accepted. The good news is that norms change. In 1967, the class of MBA, 1967, when they were coming here to the Chateau Fontainebleau, the entire class was men. And that was the social norm. The school was not accepting women. Women were not going to business schools. Today, this is outrageous. That was the norm. So what are the norms today that the next generation will find abnormal? We, the society, we want leaders who not only create phenomenally successful companies, but ones that in this process create value for the society and maximize their social impact. The good news is that change is coming. There are dozens of companies, hundreds of companies that think about how you integrate the sustainable development goals in your strategy and your operations. More and more young people seek purpose beyond financial success. You've heard about Greta Tunberg, the 16-year-old girl who managed to mobilize millions of high school students to protest for climate change. There is an urgency to act today. We are creating imbalances between humans and nature. We're creating deeper imbalances between rich and poor. Imbalances between men and women persist. We create imbalance between the current generation and all future generations. These imbalances, if not resolved, will lead to catastrophe as they did in the past. So the question is, do you want to be at the vanguard of this change, shaping the new world, or do you want to be a bystander and leave the outcome to market forces? And it is not an abstract you. It is you, the graduating class of 2019J. So here is something that I want to ask of you. 3 things. Challenges that we're facing are also opportunities. So seek the opportunity in every challenge. In March 2016, Alphago, the computer program created by Google's DeepMind, managed to beat one of the world's leading masters of the ancient game of Go, Lee Sedol, in 4 out of 5 games. In Game 2, Alphago played move 37, which surprised everyone who was watching the game because it was completely unpredictable and unexpected. In Game 4, Lee Sedol made his move 78, which surprised everybody who was watching the game. Later on, he confessed that his move 78 was inspired by Alphago's move 37. We assume that artificial intelligence will challenge us in a way that we cannot respond, but that's only an assumption. So find your move 78. Second, INSEAD is the business school for the world, and I must ask each one of you to determine how you will make INSEAD your own. How will you contribute to the mission of our school to promote business as a force for good? We are a different business school. We're mission-driven with strong values. We want the world to admire you. We want the world to admire you not only for what you have done for your company, but to admire you for also what you have done for the environment and society, for our common future. Today is the beginning and not the end of your INSEAD journey. So I am asking each one of you to become a true ambassador of INSEAD for our values, for everything that we represent, for inclusion, diversity, tolerance, friendship. So going forward, let us continue to champion diversity because it is the key to strengthening individuals, businesses, communities, and society. Let us promote peace and prosperity for every individual, community, and country in the world. I have no doubt that the MBA class of 2019J will change our world for the better, and I know you will contribute much to the prominence of our alumni community in our school, which from now on you can call your own. The world is facing incredible challenges. You have the knowledge, the tools, the skills to turn these challenges into opportunities. You will be facing an uphill battle, but you have to win. Because you are INSEAD. You're not only alumni now, you are our partners in this magical journey called INSEAD. Congratulations, thank you, and good luck, amazing class of 2019 J. Thank you.